Hey friends, Dave Paulides, CanAm Missing Project, a copyrighted edition for our video channel. And I'm here with the tired executive producer of our show, Huck, who's making sure Dad is doing everything right. And oh, that feels so good, Dad. Oh, scratch my ears, scratch my ears. Can you shake? Can you shake? Oh, that's a good girl. That's a good girl. Okay, you're a good girl? Yes, you're a good girl? All right, so this is a missing persons video. And in those missing persons video, what do we talk about? About missing people. Well, I've been on the road a lot this summer and learned a lot. And while I've been gone, I work 16, 17 hours a day on the road. I come back, I'm unbelievably exhausted because there's usually a time change in there and I'm usually working my tail off and researching new cases, etc. And while I was gone lately, a boy disappeared and I started following it. And it rolled out exactly like every other case I've written about in the last 10 years. And I can tell by some of the comments that come in that people are frustrated. Friends, you have no idea how frustrated I am. And I don't quite know how to express myself to let you know how frustrated I can be. But it's tough. It's tough because I see the families going through hell, literal hell, because they've got no friends out there that can help them with this. And I don't have enough notoriety that I'm not known around the world. I'm hardly even known in the United States, truthfully. Hardly anybody does. What's that? Yeah, I know. I know you're here. Yeah, I know. I know. I know. I swear. You want to play now? I know. So, don't know what to do sometimes about all this. Pray a lot. I really do. And these innocent souls, these young children, very early in my research, when I came out with Missing 411 East and West US, in this book, in Pennsylvania, I chronicled a series of disappearances of young children that defy common sense because the numbers are overwhelming. And you think, well, Dave, how can that be? Well, that is a problem. And when I first started to look at it, I didn't quite understand it because I didn't understand why anybody else would not have picked up on what I found. As an example, from 1947 to 1957, there were a huge number of children that disappeared in Pennsylvania. All of them pretty much the same, between 2 and 6, 2 and 7. And then as I spent more time researching, I was able to find that many other kids disappeared from around the world. But for some reason, Pennsylvania was a hotspot during that period of time. And in fact, no other place ever has had as many people missing from one state as Pennsylvania did during that same time frame. And you can ask why. Well, Pennsylvania has a lot of odd things going on. A lot of kids disappeared with their dog. But then again, a lot of them didn't. But when I started to keep track of these kids, a lot of the kids had blonde hair, A lot of the kids were wearing bright colored clothing, and a lot of the kids were never found. Now, search and rescue protocol has gotten much better in the last 20 years, but it still suffers greatly. Now, I'm going to lay out for you a disappearance that's happened just recently, July 8th of this year. A little boy named Emile. They have not ever released his last name. He's 2.5 years old, missing at 6 p.m., very close to that golden 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. hour that I've identified as a main time when most people go missing, in Vernet, France. Now, this location is in the French Alps at about 3,500, 3,800 feet in elevation. This is it. This is southern France, Cannes, Nice, the Alps. This is the location right here. Switzerland. The Alps go through like this. Got it? And Vernet is a very small town right in this region of France. Small town, it's important. First thing I'm going to tell you, also very important. He was staying with his grandparents. If you've read my books, you'll know how common this is. It's almost as though the entity knows that the grandparents won't be watching him as close as other parents, his real parents. Maybe knows that the grandparents aren't as fast on their feet as their parents. Or maybe there's a sense that the grandparents aren't the parents. I have no idea. A lot of times these happen with grandparents. Now, Emile's parents lived outside of the city, and they actually lived in Marseille. So here's a location where the boy disappeared. His parents lived on the outskirts here. And just like every other family in the world, the parents would give a grandchild to the grandparents to watch for the weekend. Give the parents a little break. Grandparents always like watching kids. Nothing unusual about this. You know, Emile also had a newly born sister, which may have been another reason that Emile went for the grandparents. New kids take a lot of work, family, trying to deal with it, etc. Well, that weekend on July 8th, that Saturday, late in the afternoon, the grandparents were holding a get-together for friends and family at their house in Vernet. And at about 6 p.m., the grandparents said that they were going to go take a short drive to take a hike with some people. And they last saw Emile in the front yard of their property. Well, they searched and they couldn't locate the little boy. And first they searched the house, then the yard, then the neighborhood, and then the French police were called. Many of the articles stated that the temperatures were out of this world. 95 degrees for this area of France is hot. And they were worried about the boy surviving these hot temps. Well, the French police got there quickly. First day, there were 300 volunteers that showed up at this little home. Police showed up with canines, drones, and organization. Second day, 800 people showed up. And helicopters arrived. The terrain was described as rugged, lots of creeks and lots of rivers. Now, at about this time, I'm going to tell you what happens because it's important to understand. Police have to look at the family. They have to, especially in a case like this where the child isn't found in the first 24 hours. They're going to have investigators, which aren't searchers, investigators looking into the family and their background. And they found, when they started searching the neighborhood and knocking on doors, because this is a huge priority when you're searching for a little boy or a little girl that's missing, sometimes a good citizen just takes them into their home because they're lost. Maybe they don't have a phone. Maybe they're a bad person. So the police start knocking on doors. And they find a citizen in the neighborhood that said they saw Emile walking down the street, downhill from where his grandparents lived. They also found out that Emile used to live in that house with the grandparents when he was very young, and his parents lived there as well. He was last seen wearing a yellow, bright yellow top, white shorts. He had blonde hair and brown eyes. To say this boy is cute is beyond words. This is a picture that was distributed by French police. Say your prayers, folks. Please, say your prayers. Now, as they're going around the neighborhood, these are detectives knocking on doors, paying attention to the neighbors, seeing who lives in the neighborhood, writing down the name, who they talk to, and they're building a dossier. Now, the task forces I've been on for missing children, it's complex. They build a database of everyone they talk to. When, where, what time, what was said, were they cooperative, were they evasive? If there's some hint that something's wrong, they'll run their name through a criminal database. Do they have a criminal history? Are they sex offenders? Etc. Are they on probation? Are they on parole? Well, once they heard that Emile was seen in this one area going downhill, they got hundreds of searchers, shoulder to shoulder, to start walking the fields and the forests in the area. Some of the forest areas are thick and steep, as was described by searchers. Now, the boy normally lived with the parents, and his parents and his grandparents loved to hike, and they always took Emile out with them. And they said that he could probably walk longer than most other children that his age, because he had been taken out so much. Key point. Right there, search coordinator should have stopped. Said, okay, multiple people are saying that this boy can walk. Okay. So the standard search protocols may say in a mountain area, a boy 2 to 3 years old in good physical condition may be found in 2 to 3 miles or less from the point last seen. It may say that. I don't remember exactly. I haven't looked it up. And 95% of the kids may be found in that area. Well, but maybe this isn't the 95th percentile. Maybe this is an exceptional child. Push the parameters out. Start searching from 4 to 5 miles instead of 2 to 3 miles. They didn't do that from what I can tell. Many of the articles said that the family, Emile's family, was known by people in this community because they spent a lot of time up there. They liked the outdoors, they liked hiking. Well, at the end of the third day, a search zone was expanded, not to the area I stated, but just a little. And the search zone got more resources, brought in more helicopters with FLIR, etc. Now, on day 4, they had a massive number of people. The second day of the search, they closed the city. They put up roadblocks. People driving through on the main artery through the city were stopped, questioned. Possibly they were asked if their car could be searched. I don't know. One of the searches through the neighborhoods found a car with blood on the front bumper. Obviously, this is suspicious. Now, this gave me some comfort to know that the French police were thinking, because that's the way you have to think on these searches. Now, they took evidence, and they haven't come back and said if this is human blood or animal blood. And there's been nothing in the press about it in the last several days. But they said that they interviewed 25 to 50 people in the community. It was at about the end of the third day that a former Frenchman who ran for president of France, lost, made a comment in one of the big periodicals that Emile's dad should be looked at in this abduction. There's some inference that he stated that his dad might have been a bad person or something. I found that interesting. But there was never anything else I found anywhere that explained this, except a news article did say that Emile's dad was at their home outside of Marseille. Okay. Now, why send your kid to be with the grandparents and then wait on a block away or 2 blocks away for the child to walk away and then just grab him and kill him? Kind of a stupid proposition, if you ask me. Personal opinion. This case actually would have saved a lot of investigators' time if I was in charge. With a lot of people at the house and with the child with the grandparents, and multiple people saying that Emile was outside on the front lawn playing last time everyone saw him, that would tend to clear everybody in the house of any criminal involvement. Negligence maybe, but abduction, no. So a normal search and rescue of something like this may be 5 to 7 days in the USA. Maybe up to 14 days if the boy is not found. But the French terminated the search after 4 days. They said they were going to a second phase of investigation, which I have no idea what that is. But that concerned me. So unless they have a solid piece of evidence against someone, I don't understand why they would terminate the search. They have to believe, in my opinion, that the boy isn't there. Now, at the end of 4 days, they terminate the search. Now, proper police protocol would say everybody in that house was interviewed by themselves, away from the home, in a sterile environment, and spoke to and questioned. If they didn't do that, they're nuts. Grandparents had to be interviewed just to gather information. While the boy was at the house, did any neighbor come by and specifically want to see him? Any neighbor loiter around the house? I mean, these are the kind of questions you have to ask. And it may seem completely innocent to the grandparents. It may ring true to the investigator that something's up. Grandparents may not know that neighbor 5 houses down that came by and stared at Emile was a child rapist or sex registrant, right? Who knows? But until you ask the questions, you don't know. They also said that they did extensive drone of the area, flew a drone over. So that footage of the drone needs to be looked at either by a computer program to see if it picked up anything on the ground, or someone with great expertise to look at it square by square to see if they missed anything. Other thing, the last thing, if they pulled out on day 4, on day 6, without even saying anything to anybody, if I was the commander, I'd bring in 6 cadaver dogs that had never been to that location. I'd bring them in from other countries if I had to. And I would search that countryside day, night, and everywhere else for a couple days. Cadavers can be picked up by cadaver dogs miles away. So I haven't heard they did that. There's no need to advertise it. I probably wouldn't. But just to clear my own mind as a search coordinator, I'd do it. Even if people were pretty sure that he wasn't in the area, I'd still do it. The other thing is check sex registrants within 100 miles. Why 100 miles? Well, on weekends, people tend to take drives. This happened on a Saturday. Weekend drive, 50 to 100 miles. This is an isolated community, only 135, 140 people in the entire town. I'd be looking at it. Parents were not at the grandparents' home. Kind of eliminates them as a suspect. Emile wearing bright clothing, bright yellow top. Not missed easily on a search. Many, many, many times, children disappear while being watched by the grandparents. Some people brought up some theories, and I'll go through some of them. Number one theory, Emile wandered away. It appears kind of that what's happened, and maybe he was accidentally hit by a car and his body was removed. Well, they did find a car with blood on the front bumper. Sounds like a viable theory. Something to be looked into. And I'm sure that they are running the blood right now as we speak, see if it's human blood. And, I hate to say this, but they'd also be taking DNA samples from the parents. Theory number two, Emile walked into oblivion. Now, grandparents said that he was a very good hiker. Okay, what does that mean? That means you expand the search coordinates to include the area he maybe walked to. That SAR zone should have been expanded. Question, and you're going to get a million answers to this. How far do the grandparents and parents think he can walk, and how far has he walked? One of the most insane things I saw French police tell the public is, please don't inundate us with irrelevant information. That is pure stupidity. Pure stupidity. What is irrelevant to you may be entirely relevant to me. I want people in that community, if I was the policeman, to tell us everything they think is suspicious. You never make those statements to the public. I don't care how compromised the French police are for police services. You don't say that. I had to read it 3 times when I read that. I said, I can't believe they did that. That just shuts down every possible venue for new leads. Ask the grandparents, what time did Emile eat? Has he had dinner? A lot of boys wouldn't walk away knowing dinner was soon. How well does he know the area? Does he know people in the area? Does he know them well enough that he could walk to their home? Who are they, and which direction would he walk? And has he walked that way since he's been with you? Is he healthy? Does he have disabilities? Does he take medication? Was he content? What do you mean by that, Dave? 2.5-year-old. If they've got a full tummy and they've got something to play with, they're probably content. But had you recently talked to them about something you did wrong? It's something you gotta ask. And then police experts sit down and develop a profile of Emile. And if they were smart, they went to a search and rescue professional to get that profile reviewed to understand what they're dealing with. I've said this a million times before, and I'll say it again. Every police commander on every search thinks that they are the greatest expert in the world at searching and commanding the search. The true reality is there's very few of these experts out there, because there's very few that have ever done this before. And many of them are working off their seat of their pants and haven't even read a search and rescue book. Then there's others that are reading and working directly out of whatever the book says to do. If the commander has no experience and you're the parents, you better demand that they get an expert in there quickly. And it specifically has to do with small children disappearing in rural areas. That is the search. And as I stated just a little bit earlier, let the area calm down. Let the scent trails of everyone who's been searching settle down. If you've got a really good search dog, 5 days can pass and that search dog can still pick up the scent of that little boy. One thing I forgot to ask, does he wear a diaper? That's important. That gives off a very good scent. And the canines, the cadaver dogs that I brought back to the scene for the final search, these would be new dogs that hadn't been in that area. And preferably from way out of that area. I wouldn't give them any information other than a point to start. That start point being where the witness said he was last seen walking downhill. If you can confirm with 99% certainty that that was Emile. If you're still a little, I don't know, I'd start from the yard that he was last seen in. Now there's been a cone of silence on this case for several days, which is very typical in missing people cases. First 5 to 7 days, there's a lot of publicity, a lot of people talking, and then that's it. Nobody hears anything more. In fact, that's how I all started in this missing persons venue. People in a national park said, Dave, 5 to 7 days, there's a lot of publicity, a lot of searchers, a lot of effort, and then boom, everything goes dead quiet. This case is classic. Classic. Missing from a grandparent's. Rural area, forested area. Small boy, 2.5 years old, wearing bright colors. Searchers stated that weather was an extreme concern because it was so hot. Weather. They bring in multiple dog teams and find nothing. They can't find a track. Last article I read said that we have to hope that he is taken. Taken by what? Taken by whom? Why? As someone who knows the mental harm that comes from someone who's abducted, it's a lifetime of recovery. I understand what the parents are praying for. Understand what law enforcement is thinking. I really don't know, because I haven't read the reports yet of what the French police knew. I hope they know something good, because I don't think 4 days was enough. I don't care who you are or how comprehensive the search. Sorry, personal opinion. 5 to 7 days would be normal in the US on a search for somebody old like me. For a young boy, sorry, if I was the sheriff in that area, I'd probably go for 2 weeks, at least, and keep that constant churn of new dogs coming in. New helicopter pilots, new FLIR units, new searchers, more searchers. If you watched Missing 411, my first movie, I interviewed a sheriff near Crater Lake, Oregon. Sheriff was blunt. He said, Dave, on cases involving children, we don't play games. We flood the area with people because we know the urgency of a young child. Park Service didn't want him to do that. Park Service wanted to keep the area isolated for canines. But you and I know what happens. I think on young children, you've got to flood the area. Shoulder to shoulder, go out and just everybody in the world search. Because young kids don't have the stamina and the wherewithal to live in the outdoors long. Now, luckily, they never stated anything about him possibly falling in a creek or a river. But by looking at the maps of the area, there's a lot of creeks and a lot of rivers. Which means to me that there's water. And you need water to survive past 2 or 3 days. You just got to have it. And a young child, they need it quicker. Food, you and me can go quite a long time without food. A young child can't. I really hope that Emile is fine. But I can't say that he will be. I need everybody who watches this to say a prayer for that little boy and his grandparents and his family. This will devastate them for a lifetime. I appreciate you being here, and I would really appreciate it if you put this video up on your social media and circulate the heck out of it. And when and if I hear something else, I'll keep you updated. Paulides out.